Welcome back from me, Tim Cable, to the Rock and Blues Experience. And coming up on this edition of the show, we're going to be talking to Steve Hackett on the eve of his extensive US tour. And he's just released as well new dates for 2026 in the UK. Now, just a reminder, don't forget to check out the website at www.therockandbluesexperience.com, where you can find all of the content that we have recorded over the years, including exclusive content only available on the website. You can also interact on the site, plus, of course, on Facebook and YouTube. And there's also a new audio show which is going out weekly across all of the streaming providers. Moving on, Atomic Rooster are back with their first studio album in 42 years. Circle the Sun is out in the next few weeks, and if you are a fan of the classic Rooster sound of the halcyon days from the 1970s, then this will absolutely not disappoint you. Steve Bolton, who joined the band in 71, and drummer Paul Everett joined me recently. And here's a clip where we got around to talking about that very first US tour that he went on, where a good time was had by all, especially by Steve. So, well, how did a kid out of Manchester, or out of Lancashire, rather, how did you get on sampling the high life of being a rock star in the States back then? I mean, the experiences.
I got to give it a go.
It's a miracle in it, Steve.
I got into all sorts of trouble. We had 2 nights at the Whiskey A Go-Go, 3 nights, I think. I missed the first one completely. I was out tripping my bollocks up in the Hollywood Hills, And then, it was just, it was great,
Steve, who gave you a lift to the gig?
I bought a guitar while I was there on Sunset Strip at Hollywood Guitars, and I bought a Strat. Subsequently got nicked. It was a bit of a dog whip, and I was out there because I saw that everyone thumbed a lift on Sunset Boulevard. So I went out and I got a guitar in a plastic bag, and I'm thumbing a lift. And this car pulled up with these 2 guys who were obviously high as kites and drunk and stoned. And one of the guys was the drummer from the Buffalo Springfield, Dewey Martin.
Yeah.
They kind of kidnapped me, and we went up in the hills, and it was that 24-hour party. And I thought, shit, I should have been playing at the Whiskey Go-Go last night.
What happened then when you rolled back into band camp the following day? Were they like, where the fuck did you go to?
I don't know. I think I got away with it.
What was your first experience of meeting and seeing Alice Cooper then? Because this was something that was completely out there, really.
Yeah, we were signed in America to Elektra Records, and Jack Holtzman was the head honcho, and he was great, and he had his young son with him, and he took us to see Rick and me to see Alice Cooper when he was doing the thing with the guillotine on stage, and we were kind of in a backstage area. There's a big sort of area. And Alice was running to the stage, the band had gone, and Alice saw Rick and me, and he came over, he did said, Atomic Rooster, guy, I saw you guys last night, amazing, And Jack Holtzman was with his young son, who came up on Facebook a few weeks ago. Now he's now grown up, so I just said, hi, do you remember me? I was in Atomic Rooster. He said, bloody hell, I remember that. I remember that incident with Alice Cooper and my dad. Yeah, but Jack Holtzman is the man, he signed Arthur Lee and Love and The Doors and the whole deal,
Brilliant tales, great stories, told by Steve Bolton and Paul Everett on the show, and you can watch it in full on the website, YouTube or Facebook. Now, Damon Johnson is out on tour with Lynyrd Skynyrd at present. One of his best friends in the music industry is the award-winning producer and songwriter Marty Friedrichsen. Now, Damon was sat at home one day when the phone rang, and on the other end of it was Marty with an offer that he simply couldn't refuse.
So, I just, look, I'd already been in the business long enough that it was getting harder to just blow my mind. I'd already played with Alice and written with Sammy, and Stevie Nicks had recorded one of my songs. And, I'm starting to feel like a pretty good mid-level musician. But to get that call from Marty, and it was funny. He goes, "Well, would you be okay playing rhythm guitar?" And I said, "Sure, man, whatever you guys need." I said, "Who's going to play lead?" He goes, "Jeff Beck." And I think I might have physically sort of fallen out of my chair. And I said, "Oh my God, Jeff and Steven." He goes, "Well, there's more." He goes, "We're going to have a guest bass player on Sweet Emotion." I said, "Who, John Paul Jones?" He goes, "Better." I said, "Geddy Lee." He goes, "Better." Incredible. And Sting was so wonderful, Tim. He was so wonderful. We had one rehearsal in Las Vegas the day before the show. And I'm a fan, deep fan of Sting, studied his songwriting for decades. They said, "What's it going to be like with Sting?" I said, "Well, I tell you one thing, he's going to be on time. So we can't be late. We have to be there early." Sure enough, man, a quarter till, in walks Sting with his bass on his gig bag, and he had his tour manager with him. And he was very workmanlike. He was very professional. We're talking about a legend. We're talking about one of the icons of all rock pop music of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time. He was just another working stiff just like me. And he came straight over and introduced himself, and he said, "Damon, I've got some questions about this bass part on Sweet Emotion. Could you work with me?" I said, "Of course. Anything you need, Sting." So we just had this wonderful interaction. And Tim, there was a moment the next night before the show. The first person that came to me was Steven. He goes, "Hey, Damon, I've got you turned up in my right ear because I want to hear that riff, man. You're playing the riff great." So I said, "Okay, cool, man. Awesome." Then Jeff Beck comes over. He says, "Damon, will you cue me on when the talk box comes in, on the intro?" I said, "No problem, Jeff. I got you. Just look over at me. I got you." Then Sting comes over. "Damon, don't forget, nod at me in that middle section when we go back to the riff." I said, "Sting, I'm going to be standing just off your left shoulder. You look over at me. I got you." And the lights go dark. And Tim, I just remember looking down at my boots and thinking, who has my life? Who ever in the history of music
It's amazing.
has an experience like this, man? And we opened the entire show. It was this big event they have over here called the iHeart Radio Festival. And it was in the MGM Grand, arena. And we were the opening act. And it's filmed live. It's just insanity. And here I come, man, from Alabama, from the chicken farm with my Les Paul.
Is this Gertrude? Is that Gertrude, by the way?
That was Gertrude. That was Gertrude.
Just before I get to Lynyrd Skynyrd, I just want to mention one more thing that you did, which is so out there, and it's just another ordinary day, and there's a phone ringing, and it's Marty Friedrichsen's on the phone. Look, we've got a one-off show in Vegas. Steven Tyler is going to be singing. Jeff Beck's going to be playing, or Sting's going to be there as well. And there you are on stage playing Sweet Emotion with, this collective that people would, literally, they'd sell their soul, wouldn't they? That, they're on the crossroads of life and they really think about shaving off a few years if you could get in and play with these guys. But what was that like? I've seen the video. It's
incredible. Just incredible, Tim. It still just feels like some kind of a dream. It just feels like it wasn't even real. And I'm so grateful to Marty that he thought of me in that moment. And the timing of it was perfect because I was between Alice and Thin Lizzy. And, Marty had been very essential in some of Aerosmith's latter day radio hits. He and
Yeah, yeah.
Steven wrote the wonderful song Jaded
Jaded. Yeah.
together. That was just the two of them that wrote that.
That was Damon Johnson there. And look out this November for his new album with brother Kane, his first band who created a bit of a stir back in the 90s. Marty Friedrichsen produced them then, and he's back to produce this new album as well. Now, just before we get to Steve Hackett, I just want to mention that on the next show, John Lees, one of the founding members of Barclay James Harvest, will join me. They've got a new album out in October. It's called Relativity. Great band, Barclay James Harvest, weren't they? And an incredible history as well, which we're going to be delving into, including that really rather momentous day when they became the first Western band to play live in the old East Germany in front of, on the day, nearly 200,000 fans. And so on to Steve Hackett, who steadfastly remains one of the most creative forces in progressive rock. This year he celebrated a 50th anniversary of his debut solo album, Voyage of the Acolyte, which was released whilst he was still in Genesis. And not counting the 6 studio and multiple live albums he did with Genesis, his career has been a constant source of musical discovery and enlightenment. Over the years, 30 studio albums have been produced and 22 live, and let's not forget as well the live shows, which remain a feature of the music calendar. Now, Steve is about to hit the US on an extensive tour there, and he has announced new dates for the UK in 2026. A perfect time to catch up with Steve and talk about what continues to drive him to create and to look back on some selected moments from his solo and his Genesis career. Here we are then in 2025, and you're this musician that still has the same level of joy and enthusiasm that you did on day one. And I'll quote you here. The quote was, I'm still in love with the idea of music. I adore it. It sends shivers down my spine. It keeps me sufficiently young to tour with gusto. Now, these are very strong sentiments.
Well, is that a question? Yeah, I think I would reaffirm all of that. It is the very air that I breathe. It's the oxygen that I need that gets me up every day and motivates me greatly, and inwardly, wouldn't it be wonderful to be, a 19-year-old wannabe with the ability to be able to do what I can do now. It's funny, ambition is a strange thing. When you start out as a kid, you just want to own a guitar that's a little bit too expensive, and your nose is pressed up against shop windows in Shaftesbury Avenue and Charing Cross Road, things that you can't quite afford. So that the ambition is, yes, to get the equipment. Then once you've got the equipment, then you're thinking, oh, I need a band to play with, and so the ambition shifts. Then you get a band. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a record? Wouldn't it be nice to have a hit record? Oh, wouldn't it be nice to not just be playing Down the Dog and Duck? Wouldn't it be nice to be doing the Albert Hall? And all these various things came to pass, and lo, they did. But in the book of Genesis and beyond, and it's still going on. So it thrills me and surprises me that people are still interested, and it must be because it can't be because I'm young, because I'm not, but because the music is timeless and ageless, and the subtext of all music, I suspect, is to heal people, and I think it's a great ambassador for peace, and it does things that politicians no longer do. it's a symbol of hope and healing, and the world needs lots of that at the moment.
Is it literally the first thing that comes into your mind the moment that you wake up in the morning? Your eyes open, the curtains get drawn back, and are the first thoughts, musical ones? What can I create today? What can I listen to?
I usually wake up with either a riff or a song or something going on in my mind. I'm just coming to, and there's something there going. It's like the pulse. It's the beat of the heart. There's the pulse of something going on, and it's usually a short little sequence of notes, and then I have to go and try it out. So something happened this morning. I tend to write it down because if I don't write it down, even the simplest things, I will forget it. I wasn't like that at one time. I could remember whole things, and even with the band, we didn't used to write things down, other than basic chord sequences, and the rest was left to memory. I'm no longer like that. I need to have it written down. I need to be able to read it, then memorize it. But the process goes on unconsciously. I wake up with music on my mind, like a sort of form of almost like agitation. I realise I'm not going to get any more sleep. It's the tapes are whirring, as it were, in olden speak, and I have to get going. Was it like this for Chopin? One wonders. I've got to get on the piano, man, he said, and sorry, ain't got time for breakfast. Got to do this, and they lock himself away for 3 days and come out with something magnificent at the end of it. I think Beethoven was the same, wasn't he? Where people would bring him food and clothes because he wouldn't wash and change and do stuff. Complete obsession. So I'm a bit more socially integrated than that. I do. I'm clean. I shower every day. Clean socks. It's important, but nonetheless, the idea of I must dedicate some time and effort to the humble pursuit of making music.
The beauty of this business, at the where you are, and you've been in 5-6 decades, is there is always a noteworthy anniversary somewhere.
Yes.
And as you announced the new tour for 2026, and you're off to the US in the next couple of days, it's actually 50 years this month that Voyage of the Acolyte appeared, your first solo album. How do you look back at that period?
Well, very fondly. It was because it was the first solo album. It meant that I was in charge for the first time. Most of the time, within a group context, you need permission to breathe, sir. Permission to riff, to plug in, to do anything. You're going with this consensus that moves incredibly slowly. I think the older musicians get, but the nice thing was that decisions could be made very quickly. My brother was not yet a professional musician, so it was his debut. I was just talking to him a few minutes ago today. It was his debut, and all those ideas that we had where we were literally living at home, sharing a bedroom, and we're going, this could be a good flute part, this could be a good guitar part, why don't I do that? Why don't you play guitar, I'll play harmonica, or I'll play guitar, you play flute. And there was this hive of activity going on even then, and my father was painting paintings in the living room, so he was equally committed in his obsessional way. And in this small flat that we had near Victoria, it was a hive of activity the whole time. So finally doing Acolyte, we could only get nighttime sessions. We were recording in Aviation House, had a studio downstairs where Fleetwood Mac did a lot of their early stuff, and Deep Purple did a lot of their early stuff too. Lovely studio, but there was a noise restriction because it was a government building. There were offices above, so after 6 o'clock you could make as much noise as you wanted. I do believe that when Fleetwood Mac were recording Green Manalishi, they used the car park as an echo chamber and put a PA in there, so that Peter Green was singing into something that was filling the car park. This is 3 a.m. in the morning. Nobody told the night watchman, so he got freaked when he just heard this ghostly voice going in a way that it does. And Green Manalishi. But what was wonderful was here was a studio. It was all for me. Of course, we worked all through the night, and we were very young, and we did it on very little sleep, and so I wasn't very healthy at the end of it. But I was, a proud father of a new album, and the process was really amazing. It was lovely to work with Mike Rutherford and Phil Collins outside the auspices of the band, and point them in a direction that they lapped up and just immediately knew what to do. I hadn't realised quite how quick they were on the uptake of things, because I was showing them things with a difficult time signature, possibly at 3 in the morning, going, it goes like this: 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 da, 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 da. I mean, all this kind of stuff. You had to be sober to do any of this proggy stuff. So it's very proggy. It's very classical, very classically influenced. But my brother sounds absolutely wonderful on it. It's as much about the flute playing as the guitar playing. I think I wanted to give him a fair run at it.
When it came out, and it was as well received as it was, it made the Billboard 200, the top 30 UK albums. Yeah. So did this validate completely your view that the future was you as a solo artist?
Yes, I was sufficiently encouraged. There were people who were saying to me, we like this better than Genesis, and just as well. People were saying that. Sufficient to be able to support a solo career, 2 or so years after the event. That's what I did, and I was working with people, outside Genesis. But, these days I choose to celebrate live much of what we did with Genesis. I'm seeing them this very day, the Genesis guys, if I didn't mention it earlier, as there's a playback of the Atmos of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
Yes.
Another album which is 51 years old this very day. It's extraordinary stuff.
Second project was a big undertaking because you've left the band, and it's partly due to the fact that you're recording this in the US. You're at Cherokee Studios, the old MGM studio. Elvis and Sinatra, Bowie had all recorded there, and the equally famous record plant, and then the cast list of people that you have involved.
Yes.
Richie Havens, you have the Kansas alumni, Steve Walsh and Phil Earhart. You've got Randy Crawford. So the pressure must have been really on here.
Yes. It was greater because I came to realise that when working with Genesis, which had been really my only fully professional situation, we had our own language, we had our own reference points. And when I was talking to the Kansas guys, I didn't know the name for a shuffle. We called it a chug in Genesis. That was it. So all things that were slightly, the Beach Boys, God only knows, we referred to as a chug, those McCartney-esque things. And gradually I learned as I went along, talking with other people. I mean, working with Richie Havens was extraordinary because he basically just took over, which was fine. I played him one song and we recorded it. I mean, I don't know how the man worked with no sleep, but he arrived and he suggested, okay, got the backing track, so but come out onto the studio floor with me so you're a few feet away so that you can give me feedback on this. So there I am, and he hadn't really learned the song, but it didn't really matter. Again, very, very quick on the uptake, and we had a kind of telepathy, which was wonderful. And then at the end of it, he said, "Oh, have you got any other songs?" Again, all-night session. I said, well, you must be tired, need to go to bed. He said, no, I don't get tired. Have you got another song? Flip side of the cassette that I had sent him, said, well, I got this one rather apologetically called How Can I? How do you feel about that? He said, yeah, let's do that now. Okay, fine. So what you do is you play guitar and I'll do percussion at the same time. So he's got a maraca in one hand, tambourine in the others. Yeah, 2 maracas, 1 tambourine. He's got a cigarette in his mouth. He's got a trilby hat on. And, I'm doing this. And luckily, I managed to get through the backing track without a click and all this sort of stuff and get to the end of the song. And then he said, yeah, so I'll do a vocal. He does this amazing vocal. I put on another guitar high up, like a sort of mandolin sort of area, and then I added a guitar synth, sounding rather like a squeeze box. It's very homegrown, but it's got a sweetness with his voice. So beautiful. It was. It's a strange mix, actually. It's possibly not the best mix, but it's got a sort of demo feel to it, and probably all the better for that. But that was him driving my ideas, but him driving it. And when I played him the final album, he said, I've been trying to sound like this for years. He loved it. He said, all those voices on Icarus. He said, yeah, sounds great. He said, so he was asking me how I did it, and I was trying to figure out how he does it at the time, and he was just the most, how best to describe him? The most unstarry, larger than life. But he just, a couple of guys went to pick him up at the airport. He insisted on getting in the back of the van. He'd just flown in from New York. I believe it was the same day that we recorded not just 1 track, but 2 tracks. Most guys would be falling over. But he was absolutely lovely and a huge ambassador for peace and love and many other things that we sadly need today. Interesting to see that Paul Weller has recently just covered a song of Richie Havens, a song that's from an album that Richie did called The Well, and I believe it's the opening track. And it is so much about peace and love. So I'm thrilled that he's doing that,
So were you relieved or surprised that the fans literally followed you right from the off? Those first 8 solo albums, all charted, in most cases in multiple territories, 5 in the US, which is a notoriously tough market to break.
Yes.
What was your favourite of that era? I mean...
oh, my God. Doing Acolyte was more a case of the Immaculate Conception. I knew the guys very well that I was going to be working with. Apart from Sally Oldfield, who was a joy to work with. And that was lovely. I'd heard her and Mike, they did an album together when they were very young called The Sally Angie, and it was released on Transatlantic Records. And her voice was spectacularly good on it. I gather that when she was at school, she was best friends with Marianne Faithfull.
Wow.
And they, in a way, they had a similar sort of English songbird trill to their voices, fast vibrato, very lovely. So I gather they must have sung together in the school choir and what have you. I guess Marianne wasn't always a wild child. But, there was this beautiful thing about it. The second track on the Sally Angie is absolutely beautiful. It's got lots of what influenced me and John: harpsichord, guitar, flute, courtesy of Ray Worley. Very English, English Rose come to life sort of stuff. It was a very happy time doing that. It was rather more complicated doing subsequent things, because once you're running your own show, you've got to find funding, you've got to do this, you've got to be band leader, you're wearing many more hats. Whereas when I was still in Genesis doing something on the side, it was very much easier. But I loved working with all the people who were on it. Nigel Warren Green, who John had been at school with, playing cello. His brother Christopher, they were to acquire the rights to reboot the London Chamber Orchestra. And during the 1980s, I think it was, Virgin were getting right behind them doing that. It might have been the 90s. Actually, it was the 90s. And so, they were making hit classical records, classical repertoire, everything from Benjamin Britten to Albinoni doing this stuff. So, I was able to, chart their progress, guys that had been at school with John. So it seemed like there was a connection with the classical world, and I've still retained that connection now. Even though I've never been properly schooled in classical stuff, it's probably a good thing, because had I done that, I might have just been recording Bach for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with Bach, the greatest. Bach is the greatest, but I did an album many years later called Tribute with 6 pieces of Bach on them. That was by far and away the most difficult stuff I've ever had to play. And it's typical me to start with the most difficult piece imaginable written for solo violin, the Chaconne. I thought if I can record that, then the rest will be possible. So I started with Everest, fledgling mountain climber that I was, and the Chaconne went very well. A beautiful commemorative piece about his first wife, I believe, who died suddenly, and hugely beautiful piece of music.
I touched on those first 2 albums because that is where it began.
Yeah.
But since then, 30 solo albums. 30 solo albums have been produced. Plus, let's not forget, 22 live. If you add in the 6 Genesis studio and the 3 live, when you sit down to plan tours, because, we're announcing this 2026 tour of the UK this week, and you're off to the US as well in the next couple of days. How do you build a set? And do you ever, once you've decided on the set, do you ever, when you're in mid-show, think, or during the tour, think, no, I want to change things around? How difficult is it?
Well, I think it's a doggy who's come up here. This is extraordinary. And he's got one of those collars on. It's really funny, and he's eating up all these nuts I've put down for the squirrels there. The important things in life that are going on. Meanwhile, the dog has got other concern.
The squirrels are out in their hundreds, by the way.
Right. I've played with this dog, throwing around a ball for it to catch and stuff like that. One of those Springer Spaniels, completely nuts out there. Anyway, so planning a set, I have to rationalise it, because there's an emotional side of me that wants to just do the latest, possibly the most complicated stuff, and I know that's difficult. I'm also dealing with, changing personnel within the band as well. So we have a new drummer, Lale Larsen, will be playing keyboards, and Felix Lerman on drums. So I've got a United Nations of a band. We celebrate the best wherever they're available from. Flying in the face of current politics, where we apparently seem to be only able to celebrate what's local and decry the rest. I often go at choosing a set with blind panic, thinking, what are we capable of playing? What am I capable of playing right now? I can do these ones practically without rehearsal. But there are lots of things that I have to learn from scratch. And I hate doing that. I love putting together new songs spontaneously, where I'm adding things as they come to me. But by the time I've got to deliver this in a concrete kind of way, it's rather more difficult. So with rehearsals, it's best to get it underway as soon as possible. And I put it off, and then I figured, I really got to knuckle under and do this so that I'm match fit, so that I can show the band and not be the old man out.
The tour is going to feature Genesis as well.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, and there can't be many, but it is still a tale of the times. And it is such a quaint story almost now about how you became involved, running the ad in Melody Maker.
Yes.
And then getting the reply from Peter Gabriel. I mean,
Yes.
so many musicians and bands did exactly that, advertise themselves, advertise bands. How did he reply? Was it by letter or was it by phone call?
No, it was phone call, yes, I was lucky. I mean, this was a combination of 5 years of ads in the back pages of Melody Maker.
Right.
So it sounds like it's, I just put an ad in, and then Pete phones up and says, why don't we do the party right here? That's the Hollywood version. The real version is that it was 5 years of ads, and my ads were rather more humble. Blues guitarist, harmonica player, seeks work. Not too many bites there. Then it's, over time, as music changed and as I became a tad more articulate, I think, I was making all these claims about sound like a music professor. And I'd really done very little. Everything was aspiration. But on the day that you decide to fake it to make it, on the day that you decide to become a master chef, even if you've never dissected as much as a carrot, that is an important time. I think that the goal is important. Perhaps the dream,
Yeah, sure.
is the most important thing. You must have that, and then things will fall into place. You've got an aim. There's a destination, and the idea is to try and get a band that's one of the best ever. That was my intention. This band I joined, I've been involved with a number of outfits. We've done the odd gig at cricket pitches or pleasure boats down the Thames and stuff like that, and it's all gone nowhere, the whole sort of semi-pro scene and what have you. I thought, let's aim high. And then, having gotten that band, let's try and up the ante, up the game. Let's push everyone to do stuff that's more virtuosic. Let's try and rearm the band. Let's get this, let's get that. Let's expand the keyboard arsenal. Let's get a light show. Let's pay attention to presentation. And I was rather hoping it would be rather more disciplined than what I encountered when I first saw them. It was interesting, but I thought, there's lots more we can do. So I made myself very unpopular within the band immediately by telling everyone what was wrong with it. I had no diplomacy whatsoever, but maybe that's what it needed, and so I doubt they've ever forgiven me.
Those venues and the circuits back then, these days, of course, people want to become famous on social media and go straight to Wembley Arena.
Yes.
Can't imagine them at the Resurrection Club or the Farnham Maltings, Cheltenham College. And you actually played at Eton College back in 1971.
Yes. Funny, isn't it?
That must have been incredible.
Yeah. When I played Eton, it sounds all very, oh, have you still got the regimental tie, the wing collar? And I was literally signing wing collars afterwards. But we played a number of public schools, private schools for the Americans. And we played Stowe. We played, it might have been Cheltenham Ladies College.
Yes, Cheltenham College is on.
That was one of the worst gigs ever. We were looking forward to this, thinking that all these schoolgirls are going to go nuts for us. It was all the boys' schools where they went nuts because they were incarcerated. And one of the gigs we did, I think it was Stowe. I believe a Charterhouse were on the bill as well. One of their number, I believe, had been at that school. It may have been Roger. I'm not sure. But playing the Cheltenham one was a disaster. I think the girls have been told not to look at us on stage. They were too shy to even look at us or to applaud or to do anything. You know, they all sat there absolutely, resolutely disinterested in the band, completely embarrassed to look at these young men, hairy young men on stage. Someone must have read them the Riot Act and said, "Now, girls, I want you to know that all these young men, you must never speak to them. You mustn't look at them. Don't encourage them. They'll only want your virtue and nothing else." I don't know what they told them. I have no idea.
The favourite album of yours, of Genesis, will probably be included, perhaps, with Selling England by the Pound. I know you've already done a tour, but I do love going back to look at the reviews of these, and that one in particular at the time. Listening to this is like experiencing time travel from a lone voice on a British hillside to corporations taking over. You don't get people who write reviews like that anymore.
No, it's well, I think Lennon picked up on the band round about that time.
Yes.
We started hearing him saying nice things. It was a watershed album, I think. The title helped us gain an American audience. The fact that we were purporting to be all things English, selling England to you by the pound or by the dollar or whatever, doesn't really matter. But I don't think there's a weak track on it. I would say, to end with Foxtrot, its predecessor, a year earlier, I would say again, there's not actually a weak track on any of this stuff. It's just degrees of interest. You may be more interested in Water of the Skies than you are Timetable. But nonetheless, Timetable has got some intriguing moments on it, and that's the predecessor. Whereas Selling England, of course, has got this extraordinary first track on it for a start, with all of its time travel and a kind of collision of genres, perhaps.
And I must mention, because you're talking about tours, and we have the 2026, but first 2025, and an extensive US tour. This was the time that you toured the USA for the very first time. What was it like for you to experience the culture and the lifestyle?
Well, I think that the first time I was in New York, I'd been told a day or so beforehand that there'd literally been some sort of police thing going on, and that police had their guns out and they were chasing some guy up the stairs in the very hotel that we were going to stay in New York. That was the Gorham. And so I remember approaching New York with some trepidation, because the stories of violence were legion at that time, and I thought I was entering a war zone, and the Americans didn't really understand us. They didn't really get it. I mean, I remember having this conversation with Michael Palin a couple of years later, and Monty Python. I said to him, because I was having dinner with him and a number of friends, I said, strangely, the other day I saw Monty Python in Dallas. I was watching English humour in Dallas. What do you think they made of it? And he said, strangely, Python broke out of Dallas. That for some reason the American southern states seemed to get it before the East Coast or the West Coast. Don't ask me why. But you wouldn't have thought of them as closet Anglophiles. Hardly. But America didn't understand Genesis. Whenever there were those tinkly little 12-string passages, Americans would shout it down. They would shout out, "Hey, we want a boogie, boogie! Yeah, where's the boogie band? We're off to the bar." That's what we encountered. So I dreaded doing the quiet moments in shows in those days. Since then, the Americans have become more anglicized and are ready to take the fact that, yes, here's a quiet moment, but that means it's going to be loud in a minute. You can get dynamics into the songs. You can do it now, but then they just wanted to party all night. And what they really wanted was Leonard Skinner, Sweet Home Alabama, the perfect band for everywhere in America at that time. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Springsteen, same thing. You know, not known for the quiet passages. That's the important thing. But over time, of course, I hated doing the quiet moments, but you know, we had to weather that to get to the next stage.
I was going to say, 6 nights you did at the Roxy in LA, which was this new venue that was part owned by David Geffen. Did you meet Geffen when you were out there? And
I don't remember meeting him, but he may well have been there. We did 6 shows actually. There were 2 shows a night. So, but I think it might have been the same 500 people we played to every time. Yes.
For somebody who has achieved on the face of it pretty much everything, is there still something left that you want to achieve that you haven't?
Oh well, lots of things. I think. Yeah, give me another 50 years to do it. That's my ambition. Yeah.
Well, that was Steve Hackett. We could have gone on a lot longer there, I can tell you, but there was a pressing engagement he had to leave for. Steve was meeting up with Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, and Peter Gabriel for a playback of the Atmos edition of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which is just released in the last few days in one of those rather epic-looking box sets. And that is it then for now. Don't forget, you can catch up with all of the content, including features with Leonard Skinner, Greg T. Walker, Blackfoot, Damon Johnson, Toya Wilcox, who was in fantastic form, and most recently Atomic Rooster. It's all over on the website, www.therockandbluesexperience.com, or on Facebook or YouTube. That is it then for now. We will be back next week. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to your company again next time out. From me, though, Tim Capel, bye-bye for now.